Introduce yourself.
Yes, so hi everyone. I'm Sally Barton. I lead marketing excellence at Mondelēz. I have worked at Reckitt Benckiser in the past, but I've been at Mondelēz for the last 11 years, working in the UK, globally, and for the past 8 years here in the US.
Great. And so my name is Corentin, but I do go by Coco. It's a bit easier here in the US. And I work at Zynga. I'm a director for Programmatic. And for those of you that are not familiar with Zynga, we are a mobile gaming publisher operating more than 100 titles in a lot of categories.
And I should say, I just assumed everyone knows Mondelēz, but maybe you don't. You probably know Oreos and Ritz and Sour Patch Kids. That's the world I come from, a snacking world. So I'm always here with a lot of sugar and a lot of energy.
Great. Speaking of sugar, the cake was incredible. I mean, I know they said it already before, but Paul gave me the tip, and it's really amazing. A good amount of sugar for now. So yeah, let's start with, I guess, the topic of this Media Buying Summit. What we see is that for 2023, the media spending is building momentum. We see that brands are still going to spend more, even though we're in a, I would say, tricky or difficult landscape, and I think it's critical that brands keep on spending. And during our initial call with Sally, she mentioned that Mondelēz was entering in a new phase of growth, and I would love for you to share that.
Yeah, so Mondelēz just had its 10th birthday, which seems crazy, right? Because obviously a lot of our brands are over 100 years old. But with any big birthday, you kind of take a step back and reflect on where you've been and maybe where your priorities and goals are for the next decade or so. So that's what Mondelēz has done, 10 years, but where do we go next? And as a company, globally, we've set an ambition called Vision 2030. And our CEO, Dirk, talks about it in a really engaging way. He talks about, putting yourself into the future, like imagine it, like really see it and see what that world looks like. And because I'm a little bit woo-woo, I love this, it's all like manifesting it. And so you think about, where will we be in 2030? And that it's a world where you probably have a lot more digital, a lot more e-commerce, people thinking more about well-being and sustainability. And if that's the case, what do we need to do as an organization to get there? So we've talked a lot about digital media, and as a company have committed to spending, investing $1 billion between, for Vision 2030 between now and then in terms of growing our digital media. We expect 20% of revenues to be coming from digital commerce. So there is a lot of momentum behind, this vision that we see for the future and building the plans to get there. But definitely a more increasingly digital world that we'll be living in.
Yeah, and so I think one thing also that you said that was really interesting is that you were pretty much maxing out your media spending, and that you are now focusing on engagement. And I couldn't agree more, because engagement is really the key now. People are bombarded by information every day, and I think if you don't engage, if you don't put yourself in the shoes of the audience, then you're not remembered or not even loved, which I believe is really what we all want to do. Obviously, I'm working for a gaming company, so I would say that gaming is the most engaging form of media, aside maybe from TikTok. So yeah, all this to say that I would love for you to talk about like engagement and the way you approach like engagement with your audience or consumers.
Yeah, you're right. It's it's not really a race to the bottom in terms of like how we can drive our media spend to be more efficient. It's definitely about how can we connect with consumers even more, and how we can be relevant, how we can connect on a level of empathy with them. At Mondelēz, we have a kind of philosophy called humaning. Now, I didn't invent the word, but I believe in what it means, and it's all about how do you connect with the consumer on a really deep level. How do you understand their affinities, and how do you reach them in the right moment at the right time, so that you can really have that impact with them. So it's definitely about relevance, and empathy at scale is an evolution of personalization at scale, which was a long program that we ran at Mondelēz. And I told you that I forgot that I actually worked. It was 2016, and a lot has happened since then. But in 2016, I worked on what was probably the prototype for this whole philosophy, and it was a kind of pilot with Facebook data where we looked at how people were thinking and feeling when they used our product, and also we leveraged the data to segment them into different groups so we could target them with highly relevant messages in a way that really fit their mood at the time. It was when I was working on chocolate, so it will come as no surprise that on a weekday evening, chocolate is really the I just got to get over this day kind of moment. And then on the weekends, it was, yes, it's the weekend and chocolate's going to make this even better. So there was a big difference in how people were thinking and feeling in those different moments. So that meant that serving them with different content really helped to drive relevance. And by having that relevance, we've seen things like on our Oreo business in the US, we've doubled the ROI by meeting people with the right creative at the right time.
Yeah, and this leads me to another point that we discussed, is actually that you decided to internalize your social media capabilities. And I think it really speaks to that. You want to be closer to the consumer, you want to understand them, you want to have empathy, and to do that, you got to be very close to your consumer. And so you decided to internalize your social media. Can you speak about like the benefits and what it brought to your overall organization?
Yeah, so when Casey was talking earlier about, has anybody got it right with TikTok? And I don't know that we've got it perfect, but we do have a point of view on this. So what we do at Mondelēz, it's quite a unique model. Prior to the pandemic, we brought our agency team members in and actually embedded them as part of our brand team. So they sat with us, they got Mondelēz email addresses, and they were really part of the team. What that enabled us to do is it gave them complete authority and autonomy to go ahead and move quickly and respond. Obviously, post-pandemic, well, I say obviously, but post-pandemic, we're not all in the office right now at that level. So we don't physically sit together, but they're still part of the team, and it's still a model that's working really well for us. Some of the biggest benefits are that they can move fast. And so they don't have to go through approval and getting the strategy and actually, the TikTok trend has already moved on now. That was last week's trend. So they can really like move with it because there's nothing more cringe than doing an old TikTok trend as a brand. They also just keep that authenticity and consistency of the brand voice. Like they get it. We actually I know that with our agencies, that they actually hire people that are really suited to the brand as well. The little nugget that they told me that, if it's a really outgoing brand, they'll probably have quite an outgoing person as that social media manager. So we really get that consistency, that alignment to strategy, and the ability to move at the speed of media.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, and I'm actually going to do a bit of a snippet of what we do at Zynga, and that I think really resonate with that. So usually when you build a game, or for a long time when we are building game, it was like, it would take years. It's like a big project, like a movie, and it takes millions of dollars, and you really like focus on building like a whole game, and then you launch it and you see if it works, and usually, it depends. It works or it doesn't work. But what's new and happening in mobile gaming now is like there is a new type of game that we call hyper casual, and we actually have a studio called Rolig that build game very quickly and in a very iterative way. And instead of like spending years building a huge game, they spend weeks building a very small game, and they launch it on the store, and they see if it works or no. And so it's very much iterative. And where this goes back to social media is like their thing is that they're looking at TikTok trends and building game based on that. So they are listening to the conversation on TikTok and then building game that are going to resonate with the audience. One of the game that's really a funny one is like Fill the Fridge. And basically it's taking the trend of organizing your shelf and your fridge on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's so many videos that are like, okay, I'm going to organize my fridge like that, and it's very satisfying. And so the team decided to build a game where you just organize a fridge with like pack of milk, pack of butter, and it has like millions of players every day, and it's like on the top of the chart. So it's fascinating. And yeah, there is just so much to learn from the conversation, to learn and to engage.
I feel like I really need to like organize my fridge now. I'm just thinking of it sat there with like all the takeout and everything. You're right. Like the conversation, you can really gain so many insights from that, from that close management of social media channels and like hearing the insights coming through. That is certainly going to be a really big part of our future. And it really sits at the center of empathy at scale, right? You have to understand the consumer to have empathy with them. So again, any of the models that really enable us to get those insights and that conversation is really critical for us.
Yeah, and it's true that Oreo does it so well. I mean, you were brand manager for Oreo, and when I was like doing some research, I found out, which I kind of knew, but that Oreo was in the top 10 of the most loved brand for the Gen Z, and so it's quite amazing. Congratulations, you did an amazing job. But yeah, what I wanted to know here is like, I'm sure steering a brand that is so powerful like this comes with challenges and opportunity. And if you could share like a few examples or like takeaways from doing that, that would be amazing.
Well, first I have to shout out Chips Ahoy because they also got 22 in that list, and we were super happy about that.
Amazing. I didn't find that.
So, I mean, Oreo is over 100 years old, and we have such a broad audience for Oreo. So I think the first thing is that as a brand, of course, we do have Gen Z consumers, but we're not going to change fundamentally like what we stand for as a brand. It's always, and that's what they came to Oreo for. So Oreo's like consistency and really knowing its purpose and what it stands for, and also like in its social purpose, it's really seen a consistency as well. So Oreo stands for playful connections. It stands for bringing people together, bringing family together, and it's done that on a social purpose level through the work with Pride, which has and representing the LGBTQ plus community, which it's done for over 10 years. So I think the first thing is really like staying true to the brand values. But then when it comes to meeting the audience, it's going where the audience is. So it is going to TikTok, and it is going, maybe it will go to Be Real, and it'll go to wherever Gen Z go. Essentially, we will follow them there, or try and stay a step ahead, ideally. But we have a growing following on TikTok. There is a rivalry between Oreo and Sour Patch Kids, and I just checked before coming in, and Oreo is at 1.6 million and Sour Patch Kids is at 1.5. So like those kids have got some catching up to do with the cookies. But yeah, it's really about meeting Gen Z where they are and continuing to evolve and be on top of the trends that we are talking to them in a really authentic way on those platforms.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing it very well. I think sometimes brands got lost in following the trend and losing their core identity. And I think and the longevity of your brand speak for itself. I mean, like 100 years, it's just surreal. Like there is actually not that many brands that last that long and that now are still relevant and doing some of the most amazing content on TikTok. So yeah, congratulations on that. And that actually leads me to another question about longevity. We kind of digress a bit. We will go back to media buying, but I think it's a really important topic. And speaking with you at Mondelēz, I think it makes sense. It's a company that is 10 years old, but you have brands that are like 100 years old. And when we talked about longevity, I mean, there is so many aspects. It's like, I think it's amazing when you can stay a long time within a company because you're building a knowledge that is just invaluable. And then when people come on, you can share some learnings. And actually yesterday I was talking with a colleague and I was like, it's amazing when you arrive in a company and I just arrived at Zynga 3 months ago. So I speak for that. And like, there's so many people that have been there for so long. And I think what's amazing when you meet those people is like, they've seen so much and they've seen success and they've seen failure. And thanks to those failures, they remember it and you don't fall into it again. But yeah, all this to say that I think so you started in the UK working with Cadbury and if you can speak about like the team, the community that was there.
Yeah, so I think Mondelēz is similar to some other big companies, I imagine, like Unilever, where you just have so many different opportunities kind of under the same roof. You can work on different categories, you can work in different geographies. So I've worked in the UK as well as the US on the global team, different types of brand challenges. So there's definitely a lot to kind of keep you there. I'm definitely, staying for more than just the free cookies and chocolates. There are a lot of different career opportunities. And that's not even mentioned mentioning, we're a commercial organization. You can move between sales, marketing, e-commerce, insights. So that really has been a great way of keeping, not like me, but I'm sure many of my colleagues. I actually run marketing meetings for our whole US marketing group there every 2 months. And in them, we celebrate work anniversaries. And quite a lot of them are in the double digits. Now, there's certainly new people as well. And I think it's great to have that mix. Some of the double digits start with a 2. Some of them even start with a 3. And then that's when you have all the assistant brand managers whoa, I've not been alive that long. So we do have a real mix of tenures in our organization. And I think it leads for a really nice mix of bringing in fresh ideas, shaking things up, bringing the experience and the consistency. The funny example I mentioned to you is that my colleagues in the UK business on the chocolate team actually just got shouted out in a Marketing Week article in the UK written by Mark Ritson, who's a columnist over there. And the Cadbury just won the IPA Grand Prix for award for effectiveness, which is amazing. And it's a bunch of people that I used to work with when I was over there, over 6 years ago. And the whole article just called out that a reason for the success and that we've seen on the brand is that actually a lot of the women working on the brand have been there, it's an all-female team, have been there for a number of years. And what they've brought is a real consistency in the brand building. They haven't flip-flopped. They've really just brought a continuous growth and commitment to the purpose. So I thought that was really awesome. And it was really funny that it was written in a time when it kind of compared to the fact that with all the consistency we've had in chocolate, we've had 3 prime ministers this year in the UK. So at least somewhere we have the consistency, if not in our politics. So yeah, that really struck a chord with me. And I think it's something to really value, which maybe we don't always value in our organizations.
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so going back to maybe your role at Mondelēz, I understand you worked on specific brand, and now you're kind of infusing marketing excellence across the board, and you work with very different brands that have different DNA. We spoke about Oreo, but there is also Triscuit, and it's a different audience, maybe different channel. Can you speak about what is marketing excellence across the board? How do you kind of level all this?
So I probably didn't really explain what I actually do, which is I'm responsible for the capabilities, community, and careers, the 3 C's, so it's kind of easy for me to remember. But essentially, really enabling and inspiring our marketers to have, to be the best in the business and to have the passion to go out there and achieve the vision that we're setting. So a lot of it is thinking, my role in Vision 2030 is understanding, well, what do we need to do to get there? And therefore, what do we need to be good at? And how can I help our team be really good at it? Do we need to do more training so that we understand e-commerce better and how to really mobilize that? Across all of our brands, I think there are some common some consistent areas that we'll have to think about as we think about the changing, evolving world for marketing and the marketers of the future. Digital is completely going to change. I don't know if anyone in this room thinks that it's not. We know that it changes almost daily. There's so many innovations and so many best practices that we need to absolutely continue to evolve. So whatever brand you're on, digital and digital excellence is going to be really high up there, as well as e-commerce. So e-commerce is really fueling the growth of our organization. It really kicked off in the pandemic, and it's continuing to be a bigger and bigger part of our organization. So we all need to be good at understanding how to drive to digital commerce. The pandemic also made us, really kind of sit up and realize that an area that we can continue to build and grow our capabilities in is really on the commercial side. So I don't know if anybody in this room had supply challenges, or maybe you've noticed the price of things going up. That means that we have to be thinking about our pricing strategy, we need to be great at forecasting. We need to be, managing our P&Ls. So the whole commercial side of marketing that is not the kind of fancy fun side that we usually like talking about here, but that's really the part that we have to get really solid on and continue to kind of hone that muscle as we build our business. And then The last thing I would say is sustainability and the environment is something that we've recently announced, I think around our 10th birthday, that sustainability is the fourth pillar for us in terms of priorities as an organization. So we all have a part to play in that. We all have ESG goals, but really it's just going to get more and more important. So how do we infuse that throughout our organization into all of our teams, all of our people?
Oh yeah, great. I mean, e-commerce is definitely growing, and especially during the pandemic, people relied on e-commerce to get stuff. And so I understand it's a part of like your core strategy. Another big talk of the town right now in media buying is like retail media. We're seeing like those big e-commerce platform not realizing, but kind of like taking advantage of the value of the first-party data they have. And I would be curious to know if you are already working with some retail media and what result you're seeing and what place it's taking within your whole media
I think this is the journey that we're on. I don't know that we're fully there yet, but we, traditionally our brands have all been about driving awareness and driving consideration. So we've been a really top funnel kind of organization and, driving a lot of our brand equity and reaching new consumers. But more and more, people know hopefully what an Oreo is. I just again assume, but it's been here for 100 years, and so I think the job that we have to do is really making it relevant to consumers and converting. And so that's going to be more of a focus. I think we'll think much more about customer versus and shopper versus consumer in some of our future marketing. And we have taken a couple of steps into the space, into the D2C space. So we have a Sour Patch Kids store. It's really cool. There's like t-shirts that I wear in the office. So I do recommend checking it out. Or maybe if anybody in your family is a Sour Patch fan, then that's a great holiday gift opportunity. I love that I'm just now plugging the D2C. And then Oreo ID is another one that we do. Again, great gifts for office colleagues. You can personalize them. And we're just starting in the space. I don't think they're like perfect yet. I think we're learning and like learning, how to mobilize with first party data and but it's the future, all right? So I think we're heading in that direction and learning. And so if anything, maybe my job is just to get people to go use it, and then we can learn some more.
Thank you so much. I think maybe we can take a few questions. I don't know if there is any question in the audience.
Or any questions about Zynga?
Oh, no. No question. I had one last question, but we said we wouldn't talk about it. So we won't talk about it.
You can ask it if you want.
You told me you worked on it, so like just now.
I read the press release.
Okay. Anyway, it was funny because that's the last question that was asked.
It was the Twitter question.
Yeah, and I was like, I sent her the question. She was like, I'm not sure I'm gonna answer to that one. And then someone asked it.
It's public. It's publicly available information. So if you wanted to know, Mondelēz has stepped away from advertising on Twitter because the concern is around hate speech. But it's not a decision I took. It's the statement came from our CEO, so you can tell it's at that kind of level. But it was interesting. We were just laughing when that question got asked because I was like, I don't want to get asked that question, and now I just answered it anyway.
And
so
now you answered.
Here we go.
And you did great. Thank you so much, Sally. Thanks everyone. So if there is no question, have a good one.